Hey, everybody, welcome. This is Christina, and I am going to do our lecture part one for week one. Keep in mind, this is a summer course, so we are covering 11 weeks worth of work in only 8 weeks. So let's get started. After I go through this first part of the lecture, you'll be able to do one of your assignments for the week. Okay, before we jump in, I want to talk about a few icons that will be used in this class. First, you might see a little pen or a typewriter. These throughout the slides are just a good idea for you to pause, take some notes, maybe jot down a few thoughts. There, you'll see these icons on the slide, and I'll point them out for the first week just so you can get used to them. The second icon is the little green computer. That's giving you a heads up that the information we're covering is likely going to be covered in a discussion post. Also, when you see the little clipboard, that's just going to let you know that the assignment that we're doing for the week or this information is going to be used in an assignment coming up. So again, these icons will be on the slides. You'll be able to print the slides at any of our computer labs, or if you just want to look at the slides here in the class, in the online class, that's fine as well. All right. What are we talking about this week? Well, we're going to talk about leadership influences. We're going to talk about values. We're going to talk about the 21 laws of leadership and look at a book overview that I have for you. We're also going to talk about the 5 levels of leadership. We're actually going to bump time, leader's friend or foe, over into week 2. So that actually won't be part of this week's discussion. All right. One of my mentors, John Maxwell, he is a #1 leadership writer in the United States. I'm actually a certified speaker, coach, and trainer for his organization. And so you'll see some of his information throughout the course, just because it's really good leadership information. And I want to pass that on to you all. One of his quotes is, "Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less." And John Maxwell says, if you have influence in a situation with a group of people, in an organization, then you have leadership. And if you think about yourself, it's very likely that somewhere in your life, be it in your family, in your church, in your community groups, in your spiritual community, in your sports team, even here at school, you probably have influence somewhere. And that means you're a leader. You don't have to have a title to be a leader, you just need to have influence. And when we think about people who have influenced us, then we can think about, okay, how am I as a leader? One of your activities this week is going to be to think about who has influenced you. And so I have on this screen some of the things that influence me. I have very strong values that I believe in. As a child, my family was very active in church. And so that kind of structured some of my values. I also love, love, love Brene Brown. She's an author. She's been a heavy influence in my leadership. And then down at the bottom left is Jay Schroeder. He's a local author and teacher, and he's been a huge influence on me. And then at the top is Bill Wilson, who was one of the founders of the recovery movement. And recovery is a part of my life, and it's something that influences the way I go about the world. So those are just some of my influences. And here's an opportunity now for you to take a few notes. This is going to be part of a discussion coming up this week. So take a few minutes and jot down your leadership influences. Did you have teachers that influenced you? Maybe you had a coach or coaches. Perhaps there are some community members that currently influence you or influenced you in the past. Maybe your family or your parents were influences on your leadership. Or maybe you look up to some famous people. Like I had Brene Brown, a famous author, John Maxwell, a famous author. I had a few famous people in my influences. Not that I've ever met them, but their work influenced me as a leader. So you'll have an opportunity this week to talk about your influences. All right. Now that we've talked about influences, we're going to kind of shift over into values. And I love this little picture. Somebody sent this to me. One of my students in another class a long time ago saw this on, I'm sure it was on social media somewhere, but it says, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. I love that so much. And so that's how we're going to kick off the values. Now, in our online course, there is a PDF of different values. And you're going to want to have that either printed or have it available to look at. But you want to think about, how do we get our values as an individual? Like, how did you get the things that you value today? What do values do for us? Like for me, my values are kind of um, a guidepost that I use. They're a filter through which I make decisions. My values also help me out in times where I'm confused or uncertain. I can think about, okay, I am a person who values honesty, integrity, love. So I think about those things as I'm trying to make a decision. And then that a little bit for me answers the question of, why is it important to know your values as a leader? So these are some of the things that you might think of as you're going through and writing your discussion post for this week. Now, our next clip, you'll be able to watch this in excuse me, you'll be able to watch that because I don't want to violate any copyright laws here. That is a scene from Harry Potter where the sorting hat is used. So all the kids get to get sorted into their houses. If you haven't seen Harry Potter, go watch the movie. It's probably even on YouTube somewhere. At any rate, this is how you're going to do your values list. Remember, I talked to you about printing out that PDF of the values. So once you have that paper, you're going to go through, and this is not an activity that should take you a long time. It should go fast. That's how it's going to be the most effective. So you look at that great big list of values and you check any that resonate with you. Maybe you check love, maybe you check fun, maybe you check energetic, whatever. Check all the ones that resonate with you. And as you're going through, just make a line or cross out any that you don't resonate with or that just don't resonate with you for whatever reason. There's no judgment here. Then you're going to go back through your list and you're going to circle 5 to 8 of the most important ones to you. And that's the hard part sometimes is, oh gosh, I can only pick 5. I can only pick 8. Okay, if you need to pick 9, pick 9. It's okay. But you want to have a small-ish list. And then don't overthink it. Don't freak out. And don't think that this is the end all be all. You can make edits later as you go through this course. As a matter of fact, most of the students I teach, when they do this activity the first day in class, by the second class meeting, they're already making changes to their list because now that they've made those choices, they start looking at their life and thinking, oh, wait a minute, I actually value this thing more than that thing. So it's completely okay and acceptable and understandable as you're going through this to make edits, to refine it for yourself. Okay, so you'll be able to use that 21 laws of, or excuse me, that values will come up in your leadership reflection, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Now, we're going to talk about the 21 laws of leadership. Now, we're not going to go through all 21 in this video. That would take an extremely long amount of time. What I will tell you though is this book is not required for the class. However, if you can find a copy at your library, if you run upon one at a thrift store, at a bookstore, it's a good idea to have it if you're planning to go into leadership. It is a wonderful book. What you have in our Blackboard course is a PDF that gives you an overview or a recap of each of those 21 laws. And what you'll do is read through that 21 laws of leadership recap. And then in our course, there is a 21 laws of leadership self-evaluation. I know the word evaluation makes people think it's a test. It is not a test. It's just a self-evaluation or reflection. So you're going to go through and answer the questions on that guide. You'll see it in our Blackboard course. Again, don't overthink the response. This is not a test. Make your best guesses if the situation doesn't apply, and then you'll make your submission for the assignment. Now, that wraps up part one of our lecture. We talked about values, we talked about leadership influence, and we also talked about the recap of the 21 laws of leadership and your self-evaluation. Now you're actually ready to go and do your leadership self-reflection assignment. All right, folks, I will see you for the next lecture video. Take care.